All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel, talking about, I don't know, is it important stuff? No. Is it interesting? I don't know. You'll have to keep listening to see what I say. But I'm doing what I do in real time for a couple of people here, just like you there, and just like me here. So the rock world has lost yet another somewhat famous musician if you follow this style of music. Brian James is dead at the age of 70. Now, I read a few articles, and this has been a thing now for a number of years. Cause of death. Uh, he passed away peacefully, I believe, with his family around him. All right. So it sounds like they were prepared for his passing. 70 is not that old. So again, um, I don't know what to say anymore about some of this stuff. Maybe it's just a privacy issue. Anyway, who's Brian James? Well, Brian James was the founding guitar player for the band The Damned. All right. I'm not swearing at you. I'm just telling you the name of the group. Now, they were probably the first punk rock band by a hair, just by a little bit. It's between them and probably the Sex Pistols, right? So we got some great names for bands coming out during this era. Um, but give this group some credit because I think they inspired a lot of the stuff that came later that became more popular and sold a whole bunch of records, especially in the 1990s. All right. Brian James, he was on, I guess, the first British punk single, which is New Rose. And if you go and listen to New Rose, which I have done again, I used to play this kind of stuff when I was doing the college radio thing in the 80s. And the Damned, they were a big deal. I kind of liked Captain Sensible, who was in the Damned, real name Raymond Burns. He had a solo thing that he did, and he had this song called Watt. It was WOT, and it was kind of a fun song. It's kind of like when David Johansen did his Buster Poindexter persona. Not quite as dramatic as that, but really changing up the musical style. Anyway, again, he was 70 years old, Brian James, and you got to give credit where credit is due if this is the kind of credit you're interested in. Some people call punk rock a musical revolution back in those days. I'm not sure because it wasn't really sustained for all that long. Much like the grunge era, which the difference between punk and grunge is that punk complained a lot about people, about those in authority. Um, Whereas grunge just complained about existence, about your own situation, your own life, how screwed up everything in the world is. Whereas I think punk rock was aimed more at authoritarians. That's my take on it. Of course, my takes aren't worth all that much, as I've found out over and over again. Anyway, and musically speaking, I think punk rock attempted at times to be somewhat melodious or melodic, I should say. Whereas grunge really lost all pretense in that era and actually tried to be anti melodic most of the time. But there are similarities. There are a number of riffs, especially if you go listen to Nirvana, that you're going to hear with bands like, say, Killing Joke or The Damned, which I think were inspirations for bands again like Pearl Jam and Nirvana. And if you talk to those guys who are still with us, they're probably going to tell you that Brian James was an inspiration to them. All right. And you got to give this credit as well as being way before its time. That tune, New Rose, came out in 1976. Um, Here in the States, I think the Starland Vocal Band was on the radio. Just showing you the contrast, the musical style, the differences were quite profound. Um, of course, none of that punk rock stuff really made it to the radio. Not too much. I mean, occasionally, some of it, punk rock influenced stuff, new wave stuff, which wasn't punk rock, but maybe took some of its cues from that style of music. But most of the articles are pretty glowing. I'm surprised this guy isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame based on what the Rock Hall does. The band itself formed in 1976 after uh, James, again, we're talking about Brian James, and the rest of his bandmates got together, including Captain Sensible, um, Dave Vanian, and someone by the name of Rat Scabies. Yeah. They've spent several years. That's the name here. I don't know that much about all this. I'm just reading it back, folks. That's all. Take it up with them. And if I get some stuff wrong here, please don't blast me. Okay, just it's really not worth it. I don't want to get a root canal tomorrow. The group played their first show opening for the Sex Pistols and went on to pip the group in the history books. I'm not sure what the word pip here means. It's like Gladys Knight in the Pips. I'm not sure. When they released what's considered the, and I'm sure someone's going to know how that word is being used there. They released what's considered the first British punk single, New Rose, October 1976, 5 weeks before Anarchy in the UK came out. So they were the first, kind of like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, kind of beating Chicago as the first rock and roll band with horns or whatever. A lot of people don't even think of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Radically changing the subject here from the punk rock stuff. But anyway, this guy was a pioneer in this genre, and it inspired a lot of things. Whether you like those things or not, that's entirely up to your taste in music. Yours truly would rather listen to a lot of other things other than The Damned, but as noted, I did play some of their music during my college radio years back in the 1980s. Anyway, folks, like I said, no cause of death here, probably a long term illness. I'm not going to do any useless speculation. So, that's it. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I will be back with more exciting commentary. Yes, trying to pump myself up for maybe something a little happier than people dying at age 70.